Professor Scott Churchill. We're lucky to have you with us today. You recovered and you had to be here, right? And so we are glad you're here. Scott Churchill is professor of psychology at the University of Dallas, where he's previously served as chair of psychology and founding director of its master's program in psychology. He's a fellow of the Dallas Institute as well as of the American Psychological Association. He has authored articles and book chapters in the fields of phenomenology, bonobo, communication, empathy, and the alchemy of desire. At the 2013 James Hillman Symposium, Scott discussed the question of animal souls, anticipating us, and animal worlds, noting that, quote, Hillman was pointing us in the right direction as far as guiding us in our efforts to better appreciate not only animal worlds, but the very being of the animal. He has developed and taught courses at the University of Dallas in phenomenological psychology, hermeneutics, depth psychology, projective techniques, primate studies, and the psychoanalysis of film. Please welcome Scott Churchill. Glad you're here.
So I begin with a statement from Jim Hillman. So the question is, what does the wolf want, and why did it bother to come to me? I presume he meant in his dreams, but I'm going to be taking us out of dreams into the life world of animals and people here. All right, his first question, what does the wolf want when he comes to me in my dreams? Why did it bother to come to me? Is he trying to remind me of my own wolfishness? And he writes, my loneliness, my constant trekking and feeling an outsider is blessed by the wolf's appearance. That's a nice thought. So I'm going to be looking at his first chapter, a long chapter in this book, The Animal Kingdom in the Human Dream, where he writes, we also need to question the identification of animal with body. You know, we take our bodies with us in our dreams, and hopefully to heaven, but we don't know always in our dreams if we're just thinking, is it cerebral, or how visceral are our dreams? Mythical or dreamlike consciousness, madness, and perception, despite all their differences, are not self-enclosed. They are not islands of experience without any communication, and from which one cannot escape. But mythical consciousness opens up onto a degree of possible objectifications. So it's the objectifications, it's the experience of animal imagery in our daily lives I want to look at. Among the possible objectifications of mythical consciousness, for example, projections from our dreams as well as introjections of dreamlike qualities coming from the world would be when we play with our dog and become dog-like, even as the dog becomes human-like in playing catch, something we never see two dogs do by themselves. And you can run the first video. I pulled a couple of YouTubes up here. We'll show pieces of them. Here we go. This is a more recent one. I don't know how many have seen this. Made me cry at the end. Go ahead. Greetings, human. I am the good boy. My fluff is soft, my belly rubbable. I have come to tell you, you can do it. You can do the thing. Believe in yourself and give treats. If sometime you're sad, try eat spaghetti. Don't be bad to others. Being bad is no good. If you think it, you can dream it. I like golf balls. You are the good boy. I'm the good boy too. Thank you. And have a good day. Now, I put that up there first because I think it's more likely that we're going to find that our pets and animals in the world know how to mimic us long before we know how to mimic them. You know, when we're kids, we get down on the floor and we crawl around and we become dog-like and cat-like. I've got a 6-foot python. Sometimes I get down on the floor and kind of belly around, but it's better to have warm-blooded animals as far as playing with them. Now, Jakob von Uexküll. I love this guy. You all know who Konrad Lorenz is. I'm sure you've heard this guy with the goslings that followed him. He's considered the father of ethology, but Lorenz was a student of Uexküll. Uexküll is the one who Lorenz considers the true father of ethology. He was an Estonian biologist who believed, coming from the continental tradition, he'd studied Kant, Immanuel Kant, is known for transcendental reflection, transcendental subjectivity. And Kant's claim is that every living being, we usually think of humans when we're philosophers, but all sentient beings are transcendental subjects. A transcendental subject is a sentient being whose experience constitutes time and space. What we forget about in 20th century science and philosophy, and we talk about objective space and time, that itself is a human abstraction. For Kant, each individual, each person, each child, each dog, each bird, each snake, each gorilla constitutes spatiality according to its corporeal needs and constitutes it according to its locomotor ability. When we were down in Costa Rica taking the students there to study tropical ecopsychology, just before going on the zip line, I said, put your arms out before you get to the end and imagine yourself to be that falcon or hawk or eagle. And imagine what it's like to swoop over a whole valley as you will do in this quarter-mile final run. And so the students got a taste of the idea of imagining themselves in the world of a falcon. And I wrote up here, for Jung and Hillman, think archetypes. We're going to see that word pops up with von Uexküll. Just as the child can be dog-like, crawling on the floor, the dog can be human-like, learning to express guilt via submissive gestures for something that a human, but not a dog, would feel guilty about. Now maybe this has been seen by 60 million people. Maybe some of you in the room have, so we don't have to run the whole thing, but this is known as Denver the Guilty Dog. How many have seen this? Oh, I'm so glad to be bringing this to you then.
Apparently while I was out, somebody got into the kitty cat treats. Now, look at the suspects.
My very favorite YouTube.
Suspect number one. Was it you, Macy?
Now you can slide it to about 40 if you can, just to, yeah.
Did you do this?
There, that's good. That's good, that's good.
Did you?
She clearly doesn't. Here we go.
What? Did you do this?
Oh, this gets better. I promise you'll never
Denver,
forget
did
this.
you do this?
Did you do this?
Denver, was this you? Denver, you won't look at me. Did you? What? Denver, did you do this? Look at me. Come here. Let me see. Let me see your face. Oh my goodness, Denver, you didn't. You did this? You got into kitty cat's treats? While I was gone?
Well, I was going.
I can't believe it. Are you sorry about it? Okay. You know the routine. In the kennel. Go on. Very disappointed. You're in the penalty box. You let it happen. I hope you're happy too. Jeez.
You let it happen. Okay. All right. And the next one. So that's a dog being human-like. Two dogs being human-like. One actually, the first one imitating the way we address each other. And we'll just show a little bit of this. Because this is going to be a bear being bird-like.
There's a brown bear that goes by the name of Valley, and he's surprised a great deal of people with his response to the situation before you. So what we have here is a desperate crow who seems to have run out of options. Either stay in the water and drown, or miraculously scale that vertical ledge, only to then get destroyed by a big-ass bear. Kinda one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't moments. But I guess what we and the crow didn't realize is that Valley the brown bear was actually the lifeguard on duty for the day. So he decided to whisk the little guy to safety, and of course then gorge on a tasty apple for his troubles. But contrary to popular belief, a bear's diet does consist of a lot of fruits and veggies, meaning they aren't quite the bloodthirsty killing machines everyone's cracked them up to be. On the other hand, animals in captivity are known to exhibit some odd behaviors from time to time that you normally would not find in the wild. So who knows what this guy's motivations actually were? If you rummage through the animal kingdom though, I bet you'll find more instances of one species of animal helping another.
Okay, we can cut that. What it doesn't show you at the very end is that when the bear goes down to check on the bird to see if it's okay, the bird pecks him on the nose and he walks away. So the bird wasn't being very bear-like, but at least we know that a mammal can empathize. You know, we don't know that birds, and I don't know that my snake can empathize with me. He's got the same look on his face all the time. He's always happy, always sad with me. But, okay, we can move to the next one. Can a bear be crow-like? And we've seen that he can. Von Uexküll went even further in writing, if the flower were not bee-like, and the bee were not flower-like, now we're jumping phylums, the unison could never be successful. They both give and receive the sign of the other. And it is in the convergence of these signs that an interpretive process takes place. Now, if you see one of those Venus flytraps, even there's a sentient plant that is wasp-like or bee-like, and it knows at the very moment to close in on that bee. The bee and the flower, writes von Uexküll, find a complement in each other insofar as one cannot be what it is without the other. The flower must be bee-like, and the bee must be flower-like. The two form a duet, and together create a symbiotic relationship where one finds the living together of very different kinds of organisms. Philosopher Brett Buchanan observes the only way that the bee and the flower can have significance for the other is if each is already the other. They thus become a new ontological unit together, a meaningful system greater than their individual parts. Let's look at one more example, that of the spider and the fly. Von Uexküll offers a similar account to frame how the spider has a fly-likeness that allows it to construct its spider's web according to the fly. The spider's web is certainly formed in a fly-like manner because the spider itself is fly-like. To be fly-like means that the body structure of the spider has taken on certain of the fly's characteristics, not from a specific fly, but from the fly's archetype, from the fly's melody. Now I show you this because we often think of, at least some of my students do, and when I first encountered it, Jungian dream analysis and the work of James Hillman, which is so reflective and intellectual and drawing upon myth and literature, as such a specifically human phenomenon that we don't imagine that birds and plants and flies and worms dream of each other. But whether they're dreaming of each other or not is not the question. The question is whether biologically, zoologically speaking, they are somehow constituted to have evolved in symbiosis with each other and to always already have a connection to the other. We are the ones who think of ourselves as well as animals as isolated beings, species isolated from us. The person sitting next to you in the chair or in the subway is isolated from you. But we are really always already connected with each other. That's something that we had to read ontology to learn about ourselves, but the spider and the fly already know it. So do the bear and the crow. These different worlds of the animals, which are as manifold as the animals themselves, present to all nature lovers new lands of such wealth and beauty that a walk through them is well worthwhile, even though they unfold not to the physical, but only to the spiritual eye. So he writes, reader, please join us as we ramble through these worlds of wonder. To do so, we must first blow in fancy a soap bubble around each creature to represent its own world, filled with the perceptions which it alone knows. When we ourselves then step into one of these bubbles, the familiar meadow is transformed. A new world comes into being, which we may call the phenomenal world or the self-world of the animal. I should let you know that von Uexküll was read by Heidegger in the 20s and by Merleau-Ponty in the 40s, and then by Binswanger, also Ludwig Binswanger, the Swiss psychoanalyst, existential analyst in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they all attribute their appreciation of human worlds to their reading of Jakob von Uexküll. Without Uexküll, we wouldn't have had the existential analyst looking at the world of the compulsive or of the psychotic. Uexküll writes, thus we know nothing so far of the extent to which the subject's own body enters into his Umwelt. He observes, and Adolf Portman, I don't know if you know this person's work, but he studied form and patterns on the coats of animals, the patterns of the zebra and the giraffe, and on butterfly wings, how nature provided for the beautiful aesthetic of not only self-recognition, but recognition of otherness. Appearance, like experience, is a basic characteristic of being alive. All things are urged to present themselves, to display themselves, to show ostentatio, which was a common Latin translation of the Greek fantasia, fantasy. Each animal's ostentation is a fantasy of itself, its self-image as an aesthetic event without ulterior function. Sheer appearance for its own sake, and we can run this video. Here, self-display is realized in its purest form. Appearance is its own purpose. This was the first meeting with the bonobo 20 years ago at the Fort Worth Zoo. That was after 3 minutes of sitting there, and he finally decided, who's this? But notice the first thing he did was display himself. Come over and greet and take a look. And then he got quickly down to business. Appearance is its own purpose. Does this not say that the animal eye is an aesthetic eye and that the animal is compelled by an aesthetic necessity to present itself as an image? Just hit the beginning one more time on that. We'll just show the first 10 seconds. That was after 3 minutes, and this is the first thing this guy does. Comes ambling over, scratches his head. You know, here I am. All right. Hillman wrote, first we had to see that the interiority of animal images is not inside us. Now we're led to see that this interiority is also not inside them. Their Innerlichkeit, their inwardness, is in their appearance. The interior selfness of the animal appears in its displayed image. From this depth perspective of the world, all things are displays, and imagination and perception, invisible and visible, intuition and sensation do not fall apart when discerned with the animal eye. He asked how to gain this animal eye, how to put yourself inside the pig or the bonobo. What do we do? What do we draw upon? Notice the eyes are what's looking at each other. In those moments, I never thought about what my hands or arms were doing. I didn't know until I saw the pictures later. Sartre wrote, empathy is the only attitude necessary for understanding. James wrote, let us attempt another entry into the animal kingdom. Can we climb aboard the ark? Here we have me being bonobo-like and the bonobo being Churchill-like. By bringing our superior postures to the level of the creature, as was spoken earlier, crawling down on the floor like a snake, condescension, not in a negative sense of the word, but the literal meaning of it, we begin to see as they do, as we become a transposed eye. And you can run that now, that video. To see with the creaturely eye is an act of imagining the world so that it appears in a continuing animation, in a continuing play of creation with which human consciousness participates in that of the animal by means of imagining acts. The human imagination is not the creator, does not create. It sees the creatively in the world's ongoing show. It's Spiel, play. Here we have, and you can run that video, a play on the German Schauspieler, actor, and Schauspiel, theatrical play. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Hillman breaks the term into its parts, showing that the animal shows itself playfully. Spiel is rooted in the meanings to dance for joy, to rejoice. With animals in mind, we can run this as well. Play is the visible display of the invisible, free of purpose, free of function, other than its own display. What Husserl called the ineinander, the in one another. It was almost as if he were the primatologist here, with a hapless subject who was willing to ape his actions as we played monkey in the mirror. It was as though he wanted to know as a zoologist, can this being do what I can do? If I can jump, can he can jump? If I can put my ass against the window and look upside down, can I do that? I did almost everything he did that day, but not everything. So we leave with James's conversation at the end of the book with Jonathan White. So the question is, what does the wolf or bonobo want? Why did it bother to come to me? Is it trying to remind me of my own wolfishness or my own bonobo-ishness? James writes, my loneliness, my constant trekking and feeling an outsider is, can you read that? And he ends with saying, that's a nice thought. So why not imagine that there's a correspondence between the joy we're feeling and what is happening for the bonobo or the elephant or the meerkat? Who knows what goes on in the whale's soul, asks James. But why not read it through our own feeling? He concludes, if you feel yourself to be nature, no different from it, then you simply are like a tree or a squirrel in the tree, and you move along without an attitude of one kind or another. And he writes on the last page, of course, this is also a very romantic view, but why not? And we'll end with one last piece of a video, if you can pull that up. My students put this together from 10 years ago.
Now here's a good little thing for you children. How do you know he's not a monkey?
He's a gorilla.
He's a bonobo. He doesn't have a tail. Monkeys all have tails, like the baboons, but orangutans and bonobos here, and the chimpanzees inside.
His mouth is wide open. He was happy.
Do not have tails.
And head bobbing is very happy behavior.
And apes are like us. To see if I can do what he can do, because he's being the primatologist here, and I'm his subject. He's saying, why is this person down on the ground? No one else does that. No one else knows the head bob.
They're feeding them oranges, and he's looking over. Do I want the orange or do I want this?
Would a dog do this? Would a giraffe do this? Would an elephant tend to be playful? But this is beyond species-specific behavior. Oh, my hands are going to hurt tomorrow. Yeah. Oh, these sides are strong.
Okay, thank you.